Hi everyone, it's marcusdezza here. I am the author of a book for the guys, which I've mentioned before. Guys, today I'm very concerned about what's happening in the Middle East with this conflict between Iran and Israel. And I wanted to discuss something about this in terms of energy prices and oil prices and what it means to the average person in this world. Before we do that, please like and subscribe. That would be greatly appreciated. That's how you can support my channel. So let's get into this BBC News article. And it's how the Israel-Iran conflict could affect energy prices. Israel's strike on Iran and Iran's response could cause a shudder on the global financial markets on Friday. The price of oil surged in a particular up 7% by mid-afternoon on Friday. That has prompted worries that we could be facing another period of sharply higher energy prices. Excuse the noise outside. Leading to a bout of higher energy prices for everything from petrol and food to holidays. Brilliant. That is what happened after Russia invaded Ukraine 3 years ago, affecting people's lives and around the globe. Okay. How much have oil prices risen? The attacks prompted an instant reaction on the markets. Brent crude, the main international benchmark, rose more than 10% before falling back to around $75 a barrel. The price of oil prices, the price of oil rises and falls all the time in response to big geopolitical events and the state of the global economy. So it's not a surprise to see oil prices reacting to the attacks. However, the Brent crude price is still about 10% lower than a year earlier. It is also well below the peak seen in 2022 following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which it spiked to nearly $130. So, will petrol and other prices go up? That's the big question. When the wholesale oil prices go up, many people notice it first when it leads to higher petrol prices. But more expensive energy also feeds through the higher prices for almost everything from farming to manufacturing. When it comes to food, higher energy costs can lead to higher prices on the shelf in many ways. It can make it more expensive to run farm machinery, to transport produce, to process and package food. However, that will only happen if energy prices stay high for a sustained period. Even with petrol and diesel, rising crude prices only have a limited impact. A rough rule of thumb is a $10 rise in the oil price would also add up to 7p to the price at the pump, according to David Oxley at Capital Economics. However, there is not just an oil story, he cautions. Many will remember the shock to prices that followed the beginning of the Ukraine conflict. That was in a large part of a response to high gas prices, Mr. Oxley says. Many others heat our homes with gas, and in the UK, electricity prices are also set in relation to the gas price. Brilliant. Gas prices have also risen after Thursday night's attacks, but the impact will feed through households only slowly, if at all, says Mr. Oxley, given the way the market works, including the role of the regulator in capping prices. Well, we all know that's smoke and mirrors, isn't it? The next part of this article asks, could oil prices rise higher? The current situation is a very significant and concerning, says Richard Bronze, the head of geopolitics global market consultancy research firm Energy Aspects. But that doesn't mean it will turn out to be as big an impact as the Ukraine conflict or even previous troubles in the Middle East. The main questions are how long Israel and Iran remain locked in this conflict, whether other countries in the region are drawn in, and whether the US steps in to de-escalate the situation. Above all, it depends on whether we see an actual disruption of to shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, the waterway off the Iran southern coast, which is the route to the global market for about 1/5 of the world's oil production. It's a narrow choke point, so it's a significant weak spot for the global oil market, says Mr. Bronze. That remains an unlikely scenario, but Iran has threatened in the past. It will now marginally more likely than it was 24 hours ago. And that outside risk is part of what's driving prices, he says. Without interruption to shipping, oil prices are not likely to stay high. In 2022, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, there was a growing demand for energy as the global economy reopened after COVID. Now the global economy is facing tougher times, and oil producers from Saudi Arabia to Brazil have the capacity to increase oil supply, which would help lower prices. But in my opinion, the whole OPEC organisation who dictate the prices of oils, it's all smoke and mirrors, let's be honest. Basically stealing from people, in my opinion. Moving on, what does it mean for the global economy? The scale of any energy prices and the wider impact will depend on the magnitude of what comes next in the conflict between Israel and Iran. But it does have the potential to be a bad shock for the global economy at a bad time, says Mohammed El Arian, Chief Economic Advisor at Asset Manager Alliance. Whichever way you look at it, it's a negative short term. It's negative also in the longer term. It's also shocked to the stability of the US-led global economic order at a time when there was already a lot of questions. Capital Economics calculates that if oil prices were to return to over $100 a barrel, which could add 1% to inflation in advanced economies, making life difficult for central banks hoping to bring down interest rates. But that's not the most likely scenario in David Oxley's view. Instability in the Middle East is nothing new. We've seen numerous bouts of it, he says, and in a week's time it might have all blown over. Who knows? Like to think so that there will be peace in the region, stability, and less drones and rockets being fired. But there's something that we need to learn about in this article and in this conflict between Israel and Iran, and also energy prices. And I want to talk about a great man called Mr. Nikola Tesla. Mr. Nikola Tesla. Yes, we all know Tesla and their cars, with Mr. Elon Musk, etc. Nikola Tesla lived from 1856 to 1943. He was an inventor, okay, if you didn't know, who dreamed up of providing the world with free energy from the inventions that he had created, but was heavily suppressed by the US government. And we talk about this in this book of mine, right? Furthermore, in 1951, the United States enacted the Invention Secrecy Act, a law designed to restrict the disclosure of certain inventions deemed to be a threat to national security. This act allows the government to impose secrecy orders on patent applications, potentially withholding the patent grant and prohibiting public knowledge of the invention. The Act applies to all inventions in the United States and any federal agency with classifying powers, and can request a patent to be restricted. Now listen to this bit, okay? Over 9,000 inventions, yes, 9,000 inventions have been restricted, including those where inventors created vehicles running on water and other vehicles even running on oxygen. So just think about that for a moment, right? Today, I was at my local petrol station, I had to fill up, and I was paying £1.32, nearly £1.33 for a litre of unleaded petrol, right? And guess what? like 80% of that goes in tax, which is ridiculous. And we get our oil and gas from, some of it from the North Sea. We're paying just ridiculous amounts in petrol. And my point being, right, is these inventors who have created these pieces of technology where your vehicle can run on oxygen, water, basically free energy, right? And why are we, all these years later, we're still paying ridiculous prices for our energy? And as I said before, the great Nikola Tesla wanted to provide the world with free energy, but he was suppressed in doing so, which is a great tragedy. It's a great robbery to the average person in this world. Moving on. Yeah. What I'd also add into this as well, speaking of like the whole free energy thing, within the electromagnetic spectrum of life, humans can only sense visually a tiny fraction of reality, okay? They can only see, listen to this, 0.0035%. And what that means is basically you cannot see 99% of the other things which are around us in this world. Which sounds crazy. You might think I'm bonkers, but look it up for yourself. And within that 99% of things that we can't see, there is an abundance of energy out there available to the world, which could be used to provide the world with free energy, but it's not. So I really wanted to highlight this to you in this book of mine, but also now that the whole energy subject has been brought up, I think people should be fully aware that you know, all this talk of energy prices and petrol prices, etc., it really should be irrelevant. We should have free energy, yeah, and make a huge difference to the world. But unfortunately, the powers that be suppress us from having that free energy. So I'd like to think in this world things will change and we are not held ransom because of two countries going to war. So there we go. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.